Welcome to the Oopa Loopa Cafe, a place where storytellers gather, where old sailors relive their travels, where shamans and mystics reveal their esoteric secrets, where mammoth are hunted and cave walls are turned into art galleries. Some visitors here bring the detective skills of Sherlock Holmes. Some bring ancient tools found in the backyard. Some bring insights into how ancient people lived, loved, died, and were buried. Much of what you will see and hear in this place you won't find in a history book, but you should. This is the Oopa Loopa Cafe, where the heroes of old come alive and legends live again. A place where history is exciting. A place where adventures begin. Come with us and explore.
Hello and welcome to the Oopa Loopa Cafe here for the 14th of January of 2013. I'm your host Rick Osman, and today we have a number of stories that I think will be of interest to you. Of course, we have our regular features as well, which include the Off the Wall segment, which we always show here in this first segment of the show, but today it's a little bit different take on it because it's actually part of a story this time around. And of course, we also have our daily dose of Temerity Magazine clips, so stick with us for that one. But one of the things that's actually in the news today, which is kind of interesting to me, it's a news story out of Wyoming. And in this case, it involves a Wyoming state senator by the name of Larry Hicks. Now, Mr. Hicks has sponsored a bill within the Wyoming legislature that would protect Wyoming residents and citizens from federal gun grabbers. Essentially, and I haven't seen the exact language yet, but the news release description says that they will use Wyoming law enforcement individuals to protect Wyoming residents from any federal law enforcement agencies who come to confiscate guns illegally. I guess that kind of depends on the definition of illegal. But it would also provide legal defense of Wyoming residents in federal cases involving firearms. So this is a kind of a huge deal, I think. So we'll get into that in some depth. But in addition to that, of course, we have our usual, as I said, Temerity Magazine and Off the Wall. Now, the Off the Wall clip today, as I said, is also part of this story with State Senator Larry Hicks. So we'll get into that in a bit of depth and a bit of humor as well. We also have some stories that have come to us from the Hollow Earth Insider and a few other places. So stick around for that. The Temerity Magazine clips, one of them is actually a rerun because I just love this clip. So you'll take your guess as to the original air date. Upcoming later this week, we have an interview with an expert from the Edgar Allan Poe Museum. So stick around for that one. Chris will make a great interview. Now our first story for the day. Can the 10th Amendment save the Second Amendment? Well, maybe, because they were intended to be an integral or an integrated set of rules for all of us to follow. The 10th Amendment says that the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. This is where we get the phrase enumeration of powers. The Second Amendment says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. There are a lot of detractors for the wording of that particular statement. Okay, but along comes this guy, and his name is, of course, Larry Hicks, and he is a Wyoming state senator, and the one who has co-sponsored this bill. So this is where it starts getting interesting, because the 10th Amendment, which can be exercised by the states or by the individual citizens, trumps most of the rules set out by the United States as a federal government. This is the enumeration of powers. If it is not directly attributed to the United States federal government, then it's an unconstitutional law. So that's where it starts getting really interesting. Will the states have the guts to institute the 10th Amendment over the issue of the Second Amendment ban on assault weapons? Okay, it's not within the Second Amendment to ban any weapons, up to and including machine guns and rocket launchers, Ms. Feinstein. So anyway, we'll cover that in a great deal of depth, but this is the humor picture of the day, I guess. It says, my next door neighbor wants to ban all guns. Their home is not armed, and out of respect for their wishes, I promise not to use my guns to protect them or their place. Has an arrow pointing next door. Whether it's a real sign or a made-up sign is kind of immaterial, because it encapsulates the feelings of a lot of folks who are next door neighbors but have completely opposite ideas on what the government can or can't or should or shouldn't do. Now, Wyoming is another tie-in, because a few years back I was in Wyoming with a few friends of mine, a couple of guys that I used to play online games with, real shoot 'em up games, real first-person shooters where you got extra points for headshots and stuff. And yet none of us have ever killed anybody in anger or in fear. Not in the real world. Done a lot of it in that game though. Got pretty good at it too, I might add. At any rate, while we were in Wyoming, we had the opportunity, privilege might be a better word, of spending an afternoon with a guy by the name of John Linebaugh. Now, John is the guy in this photograph. He's the guy on the far right. And he is the developer, inventor, maker, manufacturer, however you want to say it, of what's called the Linebaugh revolvers, which start out life as basically a Ruger Super Blackhawk. He guts it, takes the cylinder out, different barrel, reduces it to a 5-round cylinder, and he goes with a much bigger bullet. The Linebaugh 475 and the Linebaugh 500 are designed and intended as personal protection from grizzly bears. So, very interesting and effective round on that one. And it's also a very powerful thing to shoot, I might add. So, John is one of those independent entrepreneurial types who has developed something new.
I know what you're thinking. Did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Well, to tell you the truth, in all this excitement, I've kind of lost track myself. But Ian, this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world.
Well, Clint, that was true in 1971, but it's not true anymore. The 44 Magnum is actually a lower class of impact as well as muzzle energy weapon nowadays, or round, or combination, if you will. And the 475 and the 500 are not alone, that is the Linebaugh versions, are not alone in the lineup for the various handgun calibers that are extremely effective, as well as have extreme terminal ballistics. The muzzle energy thing, actually you can take a light bullet and a really big load and get about the same muzzle energy, but it won't carry down range like the 500 does. One of the more interesting clips that I have to go along with this story comes from that particular day with John Linebaugh, Gene Smith, Paul Card, and this guy, Cole Naylor.
Hit it again.
Well, Cole really and truly had a blast that day. And at that time, Cole was 15 and about 220 pounds. So you can tell by how much it set him back, just get some idea of what the muzzle velocity, muzzle energy is on that thing. And it's still a tie-in back to Wyoming, because that was on Bureau of Land Management lands in Wyoming. Now, back to the story of Larry Hicks and the legislative action that he has proposed, actually introduced into the legislature, sponsored a bill. The story came to me through Godfather Politics, godfatherpolitics.com, and it's written by Tag Cron. And it's entitled, Wyoming Lawmakers Try to Head Off the Federal Gun Grab. Rather than wait for the Obama administration and a complacent Congress to choose what they're going to foist on the American gun owners, Wyoming legislators are proposing a Firearms Protection Act. The proposed legislation would protect gun owners from any federal bans on assault weapons or large capacity magazines by making federal laws against semi-automatic rifles and clips unenforceable within the state. The proposed legislation would go as far as making any federal agent who tried to enforce a federal anti-gun law within the state subject to a felony. It would also allow the Wyoming Attorney General's office to defend state residents. One of the legislation sponsors, that would be Mr. Hicks, said that the law is a message to the Obama administration. Quote, it says that your one-size-fits-all solution does not comport to what a vast majority of the state believes, unquote. Hicks said his constituents have been worried about an impending federal gun grab, but that he's received even more calls since Vice President Joe Biden admitted the administration was considering using executive orders to limit gun rights. And this is the opinion part of Mr. Cron's piece. What we need is more state leaders willing to stand up to the feds on this issue. The federal government lets some cases slide, such as with states that have legalized marijuana. But if states would band together, they could force the feds to back down. There is no justification for the current pressure to ban guns and related accessories. Gun and ammo bans wouldn't have stopped Adam Lanza from shooting up Sandy Hook School, and they wouldn't have stopped any of the mass shootings in recent memory. But liberals see the murder of children as a political opening for passing their long-time totalitarian dream of getting rid of guns. All Americans should oppose the despicable exploitation of dead children as a cover to steal our freedoms. Generally speaking, I would have to agree with Mr. Cron on that one.
She shot him. She's shooting him. She's shooting him.
Donnie Herman says his wife Melinda is still shaken up this morning, but he's glad she shot the man who broke into their Georgia home and went after his family.
My wife is a hero. She protected her kids. She did what she was supposed to do as a responsible, prepared gun owner.
Yes, sir. We're dispatching the police right now.
Okay. Melinda, I'm on the phone with 911.
She was on the phone with him Friday as he called 911 from work. Authorities released the tapes Tuesday.
Is he in the house, Melinda? Are you sure? Melinda, if he opens that door, you shoot him, you understand?
Police say 32-year-old Paul Slater probably thought no one was home and used a crowbar to break into the house. They say he went after one of the 9-year-old twins as they ran upstairs and then broke through a locked bedroom and a locked bathroom before finding the attic where the kids and their mother were hiding.
All right, you stay in the attic, all right? He's in the bedroom? Okay, shh, relax. Just remember everything that I showed you, everything that I taught you, all right?
She's armed with a .38 revolver, drops the phone with her husband, and starts firing.
She's shooting him. She's shooting him.
Okay.
Shoot him again. Shoot him.
Slater was shot 5 times in the face and neck, but managed to stumble out and drive away before crashing his SUV up the road and spilling onto a neighbor's yard. Last year, he served 6 months in jail for battery and has at least 6 other arrests on his record.
The kids are at your neighbor's house.
Okay.
And his wife's okay?
The wife's okay.
Yes, sir. Your wife is okay.
This morning, Slater is clinging to life at an Atlanta hospital, unable to breathe on his own, accused of burglary and unlawful entry. Donnie Harmon says his family doesn't apologize.
Her life is saved, and our kids' lives are saved. And that's all I'd like to say.
Now, Mrs. Harmon was actually out of ammunition when she finally got the intruder to lie still while she abandoned her own home for her own and her children's safety. Had she had a higher capacity magazine, higher capacity gun, she probably could have held off 2, maybe even 3 intruders. And that's why we need large capacity magazines. Stick with us. We have more coming on the Oompa Loompa Cafe here on the 14th of January 2013.
I know what you're thinking, punk. You're thinking, did he fire 6 shots or only 5? Now, to tell you the truth, I forgot myself in all this excitement. But being this is a 44 Magnum, the most powerful handgun in the world, and will blow your head clean off, you've got to ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
Hey.
All right, we're ready.
Oh! Fire!
Good shot.
Okay. I will get the sign caught on fire.
Yes,
Get a picture of the sign before he puts it out.
Good. Move, Cole.
Go!
Move! Get away! Move! Move! Get away! Leave it alone! I wish you had rocks out here.